So welcome to Florida Toastmasters Club. Welcome to Toastmasters. Maybe we want to say welcome to the Hotel California.
Yes.
You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave.
Yeah.
Mr. Sergeant at Arms, secure the doors, please. Toastmasters is a kind of trick. Did they tell you that? It's a kind of trick. You joined because you wanted to learn how to speak, for your own reasons. I don't know really what that was. But in the immortal words of that song, mirrors on the ceiling, pink champagne on ice. Maybe that's just my club. Not necessarily my Toastmasters club, you understand. Mirrors on the ceiling, pink champagne on ice. We are all just prisoners here of our own device. Oh. Thank you. In the immortal words of the late, great John Henley, so I don't know what the device is that you're a prisoner of. We are prisoners of our own device, and it's about it's the quest for self-help, isn't it? That's what you said here anyway. That's what I made you say. I joined Toastmasters for the first time. I had been invited to give a speech at a conference. I didn't have the faintest idea what I was doing. I was terrified out of my wits. I wanted a place to practice. So I came to Toastmasters, and they gave me an opportunity to practice, and I never got invited to speak at a conference again. So I don't know why that was. So I stopped Toastmasters, and then I joined again in 2004 because I still am a facilitator. I run a small boutique consulting firm. In fact, small and boutique are the same, aren't they? And I help companies grow. And I just wanted a place where I could stay sharp. And that was the device that I was prisoner of at the time. That was in about 2004. And in those days, in 2011, let's fast forward to 2011, I could send out an invoice for about 75,000 Rand. I could do the Bosbarat or the strategy session, and I could get paid. I was comfortable with that. That was fine. And then as Tim says, in 2011, they elected me a thing called district governor. Not very important, but 2 years later, I submitted my first invoice for R1 million. From 75,000 to R1 million. It took about 18 months. Would you like to know how Toastmasters helped me to do that? Would you like to know that? Oh, good. Otherwise, I would just stop talking.
No.
Are you sure? So, the first thing it gave me is self-confidence, Toastmasters. You see, I'm not a very talented person, not like you guys. I'm not particularly intelligent or talented or gifted in any way. But I knew that if I did something long enough and I had grits, Mr. Wordmaster. Thank you. Just checking. Someone's got to keep tally of these things, you know what I mean? I knew that if I joined something like Toastmasters and I just kept at it, I would get better at it. What's interesting about the self-confidence is that how do you build self-confidence? You build self-confidence by trying something difficult and then succeeding. Have you ever failed an exam? Anybody ever failed an exam? Failed a driver's test? Right? A horrible feeling, right? A horrible feeling. You study or you don't. You walk into the exam full of hope or false hope, I'm not sure. And you walk out of the exam and either you think you made it or you know you didn't make it, but the point is you fail and you just think that was a horrible, terrible, no good, very bad experience. I was talking to Liandi on the way here. She said that her mother could sew anything. She was amazing, her mother. And Liandi had watched Greece, she thinks it must have been, and she wanted to sew one of these big skirts. I said, Liandi, with all those pleats, she said, I cut it in a perfect circle. And I couldn't understand why the one side was hanging down. She said, I spent 2 weeks. She tried something difficult and she didn't succeed. Never sewed again. It's hard, right? What if you try something difficult and then you succeed? What happens then? Then you build your self-confidence, don't you? Have you passed your driver's license, for example? Have you passed an exam? Very different experience. So that's what happens here at Toastmasters. We ask you to do something difficult, stand up in front of people and speak, and then we help you succeed. The club members promised they would do that. Did you hear them do that? They promised they would. So that builds our self-confidence. And that was the first thing that happened for me to take my business from being able to invoice one invoice at 75,000 to sending out one invoice of R1 million. Not every day, not every week, not every month necessarily, but, you know, it's still an invoice. The second thing I learned was you have to be able to talk persuasively. What I actually learned was if you're going to speak, you may as well make every speech an inspirational speech, and if you can't manage that, at least make it motivational. Every single time you speak. Because I'll tell you why. If you wake up in the morning and you have complete control over everything that's going to happen to you today, you are probably my child's nanny. She decides what time she gets into work. She decides when she takes the child to school, what she feeds the child for breakfast, what the child's going to get for lunch, what time she's going to fetch the child. She has complete control over what day she does the windows, what day she changes the sheets. She has complete control over everything in that house. We are under no illusions as to who runs that house. It's not us. She's got complete control. If, however, you wake up in the morning and you have no control, all you have is the power of your persuasion and the force of your personality. You've got a diary full of meetings, maybe, and you want to get things done, but in order to get things done, you're going to have to cajole and persuade and inspire people. Chances are you're the CEO. It's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? You think that when you're the boss, you can tell people what to do. It doesn't work out so well. So I learned how to speak persuasively. That is what I learned at Toastmasters. Every single time we speak, whether it's a CC1 or a CC10 or an advanced speech, you may as well make it inspirational. And if you can't manage that, at least make it motivational. And the third thing I learned was how to receive feedback skillfully and how to give feedback. If you want to motivate for performance, you have to be able to give people feedback. You have to. And if you want to improve your own performance, then you have to also be able to receive feedback. From the time I joined Toastmasters in 2004 to the time I was elected district governor was only 7 years. That's very short. Very short. So I was young and brash and arrogant. And I was in the United States at the International Convention. And I thought, I've arrived. I'm the man. And there were these people sitting there and they were lamenting about their district and how their district had these old, poisonous district governors who would sit in the corner and kvetch. You know that's the Jewish word kvetch. They would complain and gossip. And I thought, I can contribute to this. So I said, oh yes, we've got people like that in our district as well. And a past international president of Toastmasters said to me, yeah, Erich, he said, maybe one day you'll be one of those. Ouch. He's Irish, Ted Corcoran. And he turned into one of my biggest fans and one of my greatest mentors ever. Because I took that criticism for the feedback that it was. I learned how to receive that feedback skillfully. And I promise you that was not the only time somebody called me arrogant. That was not the only or the first, it might have been the first time, it wasn't the only time that I got some very tough feedback that year. So I had to learn how to receive the feedback. So what's interesting about giving speeches at Toastmasters is that you have to, and you'll realize this, you have to find a topic and then write something about that topic and then rehearse the speech and then give the speech and then receive the feedback. And at some point you're going to have to give the feedback. And all of these things are difficult things. But it's always difficult before it's easy, right? And you will learn, if you haven't already, by about the second or third speech, that you sit down to write that speech and all of a sudden you've got nothing to say. That's quite weird. I think I'm going to speak about my motor car, and you sit down and you think, I've got nothing to say. You have to start thinking about your motivations for giving the speech in the first place. You have to start thinking about your audience. You have to start thinking about yourself. So when I say mirrors on the ceiling, pink champagne on ice, in Toastmasters, everybody's a mirror. And when you look at that speech and you try and write that speech, as I did today, writing this speech, I had to look at myself and examine myself. What are my motivations? And that leads you to become more authentic. So I suppose that's the fourth thing. You're supposed to only give 3 things, but that's a bonus point for you. So what did I learn to take my business from being able to give one invoice of 65,000 to give one invoice of R1 million? Well, now we're working on not any R1 million jobs at the moment, but we've got a 600,000 Rand one in the pipeline, and we pitched on a 200,000 Rand one on Friday. We didn't get it, we don't think, but still, all because self-confidence, the ability to persuade, and the ability to look at yourself in the mirror, to give and receive feedback. So if you let Toastmasters, if you use Toastmasters, it can change your life. You can use Toastmasters to change your life. I know I used it to change mine. The last line in that song is, last thing I remember, I was heading for the door. I wanted to find the passage back to the place I was before. And you know, that passage for me doesn't exist anymore, because that person doesn't exist anymore. And in fact, you can get out any time you like, but if you really let it, you can never leave, because Toastmasters will become part of your life, even if you don't even belong to a club anymore. The lessons you learn here, the authenticity, all of the lessons you learn here will become part of your personality and the way you approach the world. So, Mr. Sergeant, you can leave the doors alone. I think we should get some pink champagne on ice. Welcome to the club, and I look forward to your success.